Okay, folks, the iPad was electrocuted, waterboarded, drilled with a power drill, and shot with a .45 caliber pistol, and smashed and dismembered with a socket wrench to get rid of the evidence. All methods of torture documented to have been used against suspected terrorists. Now, I read several of the comments on the video in question, and lo and behold, many of them showed that they cared far more about the iPad than they did about their fellow human beings. Now, here's a few of the comments I found. Quote, "I like Alex, but his points are well made in this video, but destroying a perfectly good iPad is just dumb and not at all needed. Oh, God forbid. Technology doesn't need to be put on a short leash as this violates the free market principles of property rights. This is one iota beyond free violation." Again, totally misses the point. Instead of this nonsense applying the eternal principles of Botti, Bastiat, Locke, and Mises to our time will be far more effective means in this nonsense. Boy, this guy couldn't be more clueless. Another one. Quote, "Man, this is so effed up. Leave the iPad alone." Quote, "Well, I suppose he hasn't paid the iPad because only an idiot will do this to a $499 iPad. A waste of money. This guy's an insult to everyone that has money problems. I don't care about the iPad, but I care about how the money is wasted. And I assure you don't." Quote, "So sick. If you want to get rid of your iPad, I can have it since I'm outside the U.S. Quote, "An iPad. You're destroying an iPad. God, man, think before you act. This is intolerable." Yeah, he did think before he acted. One last one, quote, "I don't see his point. For one thing, terrorists that get tortured because they want to kill us and they deserve the punishment. But what did the iPad ever do to you? It's just a consumer product, not a bad guy." Yeah, that one's just my favorite, isn't it, folks? I mean, exactly. I mean, it's just a consumer product, yet many people care more about that than their fellow human beings, as that and other comments clearly indicate. Now, I'm going to see if I have any calls on Blog Talk Radio. If you'd like to call into my show, the listeners there, my number is 646-378-1514. Once again, my number is 646-378-1514. One last time, my number is 646-378-1514. Let's see if we've got anybody on the line. The line. Nope. Nobody yet. And what the hell is this? We'll record for a certain amount of time. What a ripoff. Okay. Now on to the next story. As anyone who knows jack diddly squat about the city of Chicago knows, there's a lot of crime there. To be precise, it is the city that has the 5th highest violent crime rate in America and also has some of the strictest gun control laws in the country. Boy, what a great success story, huh, folks? So Chicago city politicians have come up with a brilliant solution. Request the state to send in the National Guard. You heard right, folks. Send in the National Guard.
That includes New Orleans, where today authorities stepped up.
Oops, wrong clip, folks.
18-year-old man
Okay.
shot and killed by a Chicago police officer this weekend. It happened around 10:30 last night near 61st and Prairie. Police officers say they were trying to conduct a traffic stop when a passenger in the car started shooting. They returned fire, striking and killing the Dell Jackson is just one of many crimes police deal with nightly. But as Vince Girasoli joins us to explain, the National Guard may soon be on the streets of Chicago to fight crime. Vince?
Well, it's at least a proposal, Jim. Those living in violence-plagued neighborhoods say, your streets seem like a war zone. Now, two Chicago area lawmakers say it's time to treat those neighborhoods as if a battle really was being waged there, especially when it comes to getting the police the help they need. They say that help is the National Guard.
The shattered windows and violent details seemed all too plausible in Chicago this week. 20-month-old Cynthia Cole was shot to death in the backseat of a car, the victim of a bullet intended for her father.
This is a child. How can you live with yourself after you've done this?
Cynthia is among the 113 Chicagoans killed by violence so far this year, in a city where police officers are admittedly stretched to their limits. It's the same number of deaths registered by U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan for the same time period. Some state lawmakers say the violence at home now requires similar military backup.
Just because something is unprecedented doesn't mean it's unwarranted.
State Representatives John Fritchie and LaShawn Ford are calling on Governor Quinn and Mayor Daley to deploy the National Guard to help the city's police department combat the shootings, killings, and crime sprees plaguing some Chicago neighborhoods.
When you have a police department that is offered help, I'd be hard-pressed to understand why they won't accept that help.
As much as I'd like to have as much help as possible, I'm not sure that mixing the National Guard with local law enforcement is the solution.
In response, the city's top cop, Superintendent Jody Weiss, says the missions of the National Guard and the police department differ in principle. Police officers are trained in how to legally execute search warrants and preserve evidence for prosecution. The Guard's mission statement in the theater of war doesn't necessarily take that into account.
The military doesn't work under the same United States constitutional amendments that law enforcement does.
But for those floating the idea, drastic violent times in some neighborhoods call for drastic measures.
When kids on the south side and west side have to worry about getting to and from school alive, there's something wrong with that.
Now, Weiss says support in Springfield for stricter gun laws would go farther in helping police fight crimes. For now, Governor Quinn isn't commenting on the proposal. Back in 2008, his predecessor suggested deploying the National Guard for the same purposes.
Okay, so not only do they want to send in the National Guard, they are even want you to give up your guns. I mean, the Mayor Daley basically made an announcement, you know, give up your guns, basically just paint a big target on your back. I mean,
Emma Baldwin wants to hold her son, but she can't. Terrell Bosley was just 18 when someone shot him as he left a church in South Chicago. His prom picture shows a young man who never had the chance to live his dream of being a famous bass player. That's why 15-year-old Brianna Mercado calls all of Chicago. Make the city a safer place. That's the slogan of Chicago's gun buyback program that pays people to give up their guns. The goal is simple. Stop the gun violence.
you know, I don't want to have a mother have to visit her child in the cemetery ever again either. That's why I think that Chicago and pretty much everywhere else in the country should have a Vermont-style open carry, because gun control, it is clear, keeps arms out of the hands of citizens and it puts them in the hands of criminals. You might as well just paint a big red target on the backs of everyone. But you know, it's not new unprecedented, folks. Remember the New Orleans fiasco after Hurricane Katrina? What the mainstream media didn't talk about too often was that during the whole mess, Louisiana State National Guard was not only forcibly evacuating the remaining people of New Orleans, which in and of itself is a violation of their rights as sovereign persons, but also took their guns, no judge, no jury, no probable cause, just took them. Just took them for no good reason at all. I mean, here's the report on that.